It's me, Saturday night, and I moved the camera to another angle so that you guys can see another corner of there's a George Michael song called "A Different Corner." So it's not like I have a huge apartment, but you can see a different corner. I'm in the opposite corner of my long couch that I usually sit in, and I have my Nagel and my favorite lamp behind me. So let me first start by saying that tonight's going to be a peculiar show. I'm just going to tell you that outright, because there's a lot going on in the world and in my head simultaneously. So it's kind of like gears, kind of going back and forth. And so we'll have the inside and the outside. Let's start with the outside to begin with, which is you have no idea how happy I am. And I said this on the 3:30 today, that I am counting down these days until whatever happens. It's just that simple. Like Tuesday is 3 weeks until the election. And no matter what happens, one thing I've learned about politics is there's always a group of people that are unhappy. It's just that simple. It's a sum zero game. Somebody wins, somebody loses. Now, life is not sum zero. Life is not sum zero. I want to repeat that. And that I like to add the word "and" to things. A lot of people like to say, blah, 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 but blah, blah, blah. Well, first of all, I used to be one of those people, and I think it can be somewhat of a communication. I think I'm a little over caffeinated. I apologize, but I got to be honest with you. The Diet Cherry Coke, that's my Saturday night treat. So I'm going to take a sip. Here's to you. If you have one, lift it, whatever it is you got with you. Okay, much better now. So what I was saying is that communication, words are powerful. My friend Hector had a quote where he said, "Why do you think they call it spelling? Like casting a spell. How do you spell something?" Words are very important. And when you have a sentence and you say, "I would very much like to succeed at, starting a YouTube channel," for instance, that was me. I didn't say, "But, if it doesn't work out, then I guess that YouTube isn't the thing for me." So many people want things, and they don't realize that as soon as you add "but," you've basically canceled the first half of the sentence. You've made it not true. You've eradicated it. So whatever you said before the "but" just lost all its power. So be very mindful of that. And I tell people, think about the word or the word "and." We don't live in a sum zero world. I get so upset when people think it's this or that. No, it could be this and that. And I'm saying that because, I remember in 1994, I'm pretty sure it was fall of 94. So it's been a minute. There was actually a vote in Canada to see if Quebec, the province of Quebec with Montreal, would secede from Canada and become its own country, like French Canada, French Canadian, whatever. The country of, Poutine, I don't know.
I love Montreal. I've been there many times. But the French Canadians they are different than the regular Canadians. No different than if you're in the United States and you go to, certain parts of Louisiana. And producer Stanton can speak to this, like the Cajun country, the Creole people. There are people within our own United States that have their own thing going, just like they call Key West the Conch Republic. Like people that live in Key West, they are, the Conch Republic. So that vote was 49.5 to like 50.5. Like it was that close. I remember having a French Canadian friend who was just crestfallen that it didn't happen. And I kept thinking, in my mind as an American, I'm like, really? You were going to, like, little Quebec was going to be like, we're our own country. But I mean, look at Liechtenstein. But the fact that the vote was that close, that's incredible. Now, again, I'm paraphrasing. I'm not sitting here, oh, you like me closer to the camera? Thank you. The fact that it was that close kind of floored me, because in the United States, we don't have that close. We have the popular vote. We have the electoral college. The electoral college is the electoral college. Once it hits the number that it needs to win, then it's over. So we've never really, as much as we like to say in 2000 that we had, the dangling chads and all of that business, it was what it was. And as angry as a lot of people were that, George Bush won, I'm always fond of saying, and don't jump down my throat because I'm just a student of history. I don't have skin in the game. I promise I don't. But I'm always fond of saying, how could it be that people say that George Bush stole the election when Al Gore didn't win Tennessee? That's his own state. That's where him and his father are from. Like, what could they possibly have known about Gore in Tennessee that we didn't? Now, the reason why I'm saying all of this is because Al Gore did not become president, but he remained, whether you like him or not, again, don't have skin in the game, he remained relevant and important in a whole different way by doing An Inconvenient Truth. So the idea, the notion that something is this or that, and if this doesn't happen, but this, no. I want you to start thinking about the future, the post-COVID future, because that's what's really been on my mind. Is I keep jokingly, and now I'm afraid to say it because of the president having been ill, I call it the election infection. But the reality is, it's not going to be like, okay, we had an election and the election passed and now everything's back to normal. Well, it's not going to be, for a number of reasons. Number one, they can't just spring into action and have everything go back to normal, or then we would know that whoever was keeping it from being normal, and when I say whoever, shrug, was, politicizing it and dragging their feet. So I believe whoever wins, it's not going to just be, floodgates, everything's back to normal. I'm not getting a pedicure on the sidewalk. And I think the numbers and the rising number of infections, we haven't leveled off or even dropped significantly, because now it's getting cool again, blah, blah, blah. And people are, letting their guards down again, whatever. I don't sit there and dwell on, I think it's 200,000 dead. I mean, I don't see state by state, hot spot by hot spot, whatever that means. So I want to think about a lot of people need to realize a lot of jobs ain't coming back. That's, yes, Jesus, if that's what you go by, yes. Jesus, if that's what you go by. And sidebar that I didn't mention yet is that 1010 is always an interesting day for me, because my first husband, who was my first, love, was born 1010, 1959. And he has passed. I would have been a widow had he not broken my heart. And so yes, I didn't always like younger guys. I was a sophomore. I was a young girl. He was a senior, and that's when I first met him. And he was an identical twin, which I always thought was interesting, that he was an identical twin and they were born 10-10. And when they played football, my husband's number was 19 and his brother was 59. And there's a picture of the two of them side by side, 1959, that was in his mother's hallway for years. So I always think of him. And look, we were so young when we got married. It was going steady with paperwork. So the fact that it didn't work out, there's not only no rancor at all, but I think about my life in terms of everything happens for a reason. And I wouldn't have been a comedian if he hadn't broken my heart. I wouldn't be here with you guys. So see what I mean? See how I tied that all up? That it's like I would have loved to have been married with children and a homestead and a family and this life. That would have been great. And whatever happened seemed to be the right thing that needed to happen. That in this now, I'm here with you guys and I'm completely joyful and delighted, other than the fact that, there's still a little twinge in your heart when you think that somebody that you've known since you were so young and, experienced so many of life's big events with is no longer with us. So getting back to what Jesus posted, is that, at some point we are going to be, I don't know if we're going to be fatigued, if it's going to change, if there's going to be a vaccine, herd mentality, whatever is going, herd immunity, herd mentality, same thing. Whenever this runs its course, and I looked up an article that said, and it's an old article, how do pandemics end? It's just, Google it. How do pandemics end? Here's the answer. Badly. That was the answer. They said there's basically two scenarios. That, you have herd immunity, which is what happened with the Spanish flu, or there's a vaccine like we have with the regular flu where you get a flu shot. So that's like the actual pathogens are contained, controlled, dealt with, the germs, the viruses, or open revolt. People just get fatigued. They get tired. They're like, I can't do this anymore. I just can't. I'm done. I got to go back to some semblance of my normal life. So as we move into going back to some semblance, whatever happens between now and the end of the year, I'm here to tell you that between now and the end of the year, we're less than 3 months away from New Year's Eve, from 2020 just being in our rearview mirror. And how are we going to use that? What are we going to do with it? Because it's not going to go back anytime soon. We're not going to be in open revolt or herd immunity anytime soon. So that being said, I'm not being the bearer of bad news. Quite the contrary. I'm saying that some of us, myself included, have really adapted. We've created a way from no way. For instance, being here with you, the live stream, the 3:30. None of this would have happened for me. I'm being honest, and producer Stanton knows it. I'm like technology for me is like sunlight to a vampire, like, wah! And here, there's actually a book called Everything is Figure Outable. It's a book. And I've relied on that mindset. Just when I read the title, I didn't have to read the book. I was like, you're right. Google it. Put a question in a forum. Call a friend. Use your lifeline. And in this almost 7 months since I returned from Australia, I've figured out how I want to live the rest of my life. I figured out that being a joyful person and doing something that's, in alignment with what you're good at, and even sometimes what you're not good at, but you're willing to get better at for the greater good, for your own well-being, makes you somewhat pandemic proof. It makes you politics proof. It makes you poverty proof. Because poverty is a mindset. I tell people that my worst day of being a broke ass comic with bad credit and bald tires and eating ramen noodles was better than my best day making a bunch of money selling insurance, which is what I did for my last day job. I sold medical malpractice insurance to physicians. So let me tell you about a couple of changes that are going to be coming to the live stream with the help of producer Stanton, so that whatever happens, whenever, whatever, I'm not changing this. This is going to continue to happen. I've been getting a lot of emails from people because, let's face it, not everybody's good on every platform. So I have I'm going to assume older people that aren't as adept at social media or understanding, different platforms, saying, I absolutely loved your show on KFI. What happened? Where did you go? Blah, blah, blah. And I say, well, I'm doing a live stream 8 o'clock Saturday nights on YouTube, Talk of Our Times. It's a mix of, I answer emails. I actually take the time. Some of you have received messages from me. And, it's very hard to explain to people who don't grasp. Like, if you like me, you can find me other places. Like, you don't have to get on a cruise ship now or go to a comedy club. Whatever device you listen to KFI, which I guess some people listen on the actual radio, in which case you couldn't find this, but I don't know very many people that don't have a phone. So I want to be very clear that being an entertainer, a writer, performer, it's what I do. It's in alignment with my gifts. It's who and what I am. And once I got over grinding my gears that I couldn't do it on a cruise ship or in a comedy club or in a theater or all the other live venues that I've had open to me for so many years, almost 30, then I figured, okay, I'll do other things. Well, my time on radio has made it easy for me to do Zoom because I'm accustomed to being by myself, as I am right now. Producer Stanton is in his home. So I don't hear laughter. I don't see approval. I don't get thumbs up. I'm just talking and feeling like what I'm saying should resonate with somebody because it's coming from a very authentic place within me, which is how radio works. I had the best program director in the world, Jimmy Steele, tell me, if you're having fun, they're having fun. Be lighthearted. So I'm going to continue to do this even when my brick and mortar options come back to me. This is a very good option for me because it's very much like a marriage of radio and being a writer performer. And I think I didn't understand the concept of a live stream having, for lack of a better term, a little more energy than a podcast. Technically, they're the same thing. My podcast is pre-recorded. I don't do them live, so it's not a live stream because I'm very focused on particular material. And I just posted one not long ago called Timing is Everything. And actually, now that I mention it, Producer Stanton will have to give me the thumbs up to tell me if I'm on the right track. Producer Stanton aired it one time in its naked and raw state on September 26th when I was in San Diego performing for a charity, brick and mortar, on stage, and has not posted it since. Is that correct, Producer Stanton? Oh, yep, there you go. Well, then sometime this week, we will post the pre-recorded podcast, Timing is Everything, which was recorded on my birthday because I wanted to give you the gift. So I'm kind of like those old people that I didn't understand how this all works until we got here, until we got to COVID times. And it's taken me a moment to realize that there's a lot of overlap of content between the 3:30, and I want to talk about some of the topics I talked about this week because a lot went into it. Was a good week. It was just a really chock-a-block full of stuff week. I think because we went into October, and October is such a fabulous month. I love October. I love Halloween. I love this time of year. I love when the temperature changes and the position of the sun. I mean, have you noticed it in your own home? Have you noticed where the sun hits your patio or your backyard or your front door or your window in your bedroom? For some reason, this year, maybe it's COVID, maybe it's because I'm home all the time, I've taken to actually having to rotate my plants. I never did that before. Maybe that's why they died, because I realized how much stronger the sun hits a particular corner of my patio. I have a little balcony and I like to have plants on it. I pretty much scorched some little, what they call parade roses, because the sun changed positions. This is a beautiful time of year. And I want you to think about, what time passes, whether we're digging in and enjoying it or pivoting or making the most of it, or understanding that life isn't a sum-zero game, that it doesn't have to be this job or I'm not happy, this didn't work, but no, you may not get your old job back. I may not get my old job back. And they keep pushing the cruises back further and further. I know eventually they're not going to let billions of dollars of boats just sit unused, but it could be a while. Eventually, I mean, I'm not sure what any of your jobs are, but eventually they have to use things that need to be used. Disneyland is not going to remain closed. Universal Studios is not going to remain closed. Now, are certain companies going to stay closed? Sure. Are certain small stores that were struggling going to remain closed? Sure. Are restaurants that were on the bubble going to reopen? Probably not. But I think you have a sense now. I think we all kind of know what's coming back and what isn't. Or we have a notion. So as we get closer to, and again, I'm not a political person, but I want to talk about one story that kind of freaked me out a little bit. Because when I read the headline, and keep in mind, I don't do stories like everybody else. When I read the headline, it sounds crazy, but I didn't realize that porcupines, and I saw the movie Sing, and Scarlett Johansson, she was a hedgehog, I think. But correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that porcupines can really shoot quills. I don't think it works that way. I don't think they have little micro muscles. You always see people with quills stuck in them in the cartoons. But I think that's if you actually get close to the porcupine. I don't think they can get you from across the room. And I've never heard anybody speak harshly, say boy, porcupines, it's not like a coati or a raccoon. I've never heard anybody say, those porcupines, man, they are SOBs if you mess with a porcupine. So right here, to Maine, and you always think of Maine as like lobster and nice guys and dock shoes, and big cable knit sweaters. I don't ever think of malicious things happening in Maine. Not no offense if you're watching from Michigan, but somebody tells me somebody got a beat down in Michigan, I'm like, yeah, it's Michigan. But this is Maine. 2 Maine police officers were fired from the Rockland Police Department following a criminal and internal investigation into allegations leveled against them. Here's what they did. They beat porcupines to death. Beat porcupines to death with their batons. What? Not that it's right to kill any animal, but a porcupine is like a mammal. It's not like you're beating, a slug. And not that you should beat slugs or pour bleach on them or do whatever other cruel and awful things people do to slugs. Addison Cox, 27, and Michael Rollerson, 30, were fired after allegedly beating porcupines to death with their batons while on duty, according to the Courier-Gazette. The incidents took place in early June, but were not reported until late August by another Rockland police officer, the Courier-Gazette reported. Now, Police Chief Chris Young confirmed the termination of the two officers in a statement on Facebook. This is the world we live in now, but would not divulge their identities or any details, citing state law relating to employee discipline. Young declined to comment to CNN. He would put it on Facebook that these guys get fired, but he wouldn't comment. But they're saying that somebody leaked it. A third officer is on administrative leave for allegedly filming a video of Rollerson killing a porcupine. The Maine Bureau of Warden Services, which oversees law enforcement related to fishery and wildlife, conducted the criminal investigation. You can't just beat animals unless they attack you. And you certainly can't make sport of it. Conducted a criminal investigation into the incidents. The Lincoln County Sheriff's Office, on behalf of the Rockland Police Department, completed an internal investigation, but could not divulge any details. Why? Why not? In the world we live in, we know everything about everybody. We know too much. This is the time of TMI. Why are they protecting these rat bastards? From what? We already know. Somebody leaked it. The court complaint states that on or about August 31st, Cox and Rollerson, in a manner manifesting a depraved indifference to animal life or suffering, did intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly cause extreme physical pain to an animal, cause the death of an animal, or physically torture an animal. They have been charged with misdemeanor. That's not right. Aggravated cruelty to animals and night hunting. I don't even know what that means. Which are Class C and D crimes, respectively, in Maine. Rollerson estimated that he killed 8 porcupines, while Cox said he killed 3. They were, they're going to be, their court appearance is set for November 9th. Mike is a decorated veteran, a dedicated police officer, and a loving family man. That's what I say. This is not an opportunity for some activists to score cheap points on a police officer, Rollerson's attorney, Steve Smith, told CNN. A tremendous amount of power is given to those who wear a badge and are tasked with protecting their communities. It's a power that I do not take lightly, Rockland Police Chief Young stated on Facebook. Okay. The reason why I gave you that story, the way that I gave it to you, is because I'm going to probably get in trouble for this. Let me just say, insert, I probably should have peppermint flavored ballet slippers right now. But the point is, it's a little bit like the Catholic Church. And I think one of the reasons that we have problems with law enforcement is because there is some, and I've said this before, but it's not new, but there's been some feeling of, for lack of a better term, omerta. Like, it's not easy for good people to come forward and say, I witnessed something. This was a leak to the Courier-Gazette, which the head of the department, Mr. Young, would not come clean and publicly say, this is deplorable. This is disgusting. We abhor this. These guys they're going to get fired. They're going to get rode out on a rail. They will never be able to, we're going to make sure they never get to own a gun again. They never get to, it's a misdemeanor to beat an animal, a mammal, a defenseless, harmless animal. I think some of you can connect the dots with what I'm saying. So let me go a step further, as long as I'm going there, which is we need term limits. And when I say we need term limits, as human beings, bear with me, we change and grow constantly. Sometimes we grow, sometimes we shrink, sometimes we devolve, sometimes we go backwards. Sometimes we drink more. Sometimes we get depressed more. Sometimes we go to the gym more. Sometimes we grow our muscles. Sometimes we grow our faith. Because there's no stasis on a physical plane. You're either growing, you're either living, or you're dying. You're not staying the same. So if that's the case, even in interpersonal relationships, I remember years ago telling my ex-husband, that I thought that people should have marriage contracts, not a prenup, because I feel like a prenup, and I've never had a prenup and I had to pay. I believe that when you marry someone, you are hopeful. You very much want to be with that person. I can't imagine, in my case, but I'm sure people get married for green cards, people get married for security, stability, for all manner of reasons other than love. But whatever reason you married that person, especially if it wasn't love, is potentially going to tick out and much faster if you don't have that basis of love. So fair enough. If you have an arrangement, all the more reason that instead of a prenup, which is a self-fulfilling prophecy, what if you can have a contract, just like I've had with radio stations, where you have the contract and you say, all right, we're going to hire you for 2 years to do morning drive. If at the end of year 1, everything's cool, we don't even have to have a discussion. It automatically rolls into year 2. What if, when you got married, you had provisions of first 5 years, we're going to do this, and you had a couple of provisions for children, if they're born, if you decide not to have any, if there's a change of status. Because let's face it, I've known people that got married and one spouse said, I don't want children. And the other spouse said, well, that's good. I don't want children either. And then somebody changed and said, I do want children. So think about how logical it would be that if you took into account that human beings are dynamic, incredibly dynamic, and especially in the world we live in, and you didn't try to have this sort of one size fits all garment, the constitution of human behavior, and said, okay, we're going to have this, and then we're going to renew it, and we're going to have this, and we're going to have this. Because I remember when the Boston bombers were getting caught, and they had all of those policemen in Boston coming out of the bus to catch the brother that was still alive, who ended up being, hiding in a boat in somebody's backyard. And I saw, and forgive me, I'm going to get in trouble, all of these obese, fat-ass cops bounding out of the bus. And I'm thinking, you're not going to catch that wily, skinny little terrorist. You're going to have to shoot him. None of you can catch him. I don't see a single person getting off this bus that can run him down. Does that make me a bad person? Because you become a cop, you take a physical, go to the gun range, some basic stuff. I know. My most recent long-term relationship was somebody who became a policeman. He was younger than me. He went through the academy. I was with him when he went through the academy. I know exactly what the process is to become a policeman in Southern California. I lived it. I saw it. And then that's it. You have to meet certain parameters. But we've all seen obese cops. We've all seen that people change. Now, am I in any way saying the policemen are bad or they should be defunded or they're inherently evil? No. But I do believe, number one, that there should be a place where you don't have to leak and you don't have to get sneaky. There should be a place where a good policeman has a safe environment to report a bad policeman. That it doesn't have to be an anonymous leak to the Courier Gazette that somebody's beating defenseless porcupines to death. Because if you have it in you, you and I both know that it always starts with animals. All right, you understand what I'm saying? So, to be perfectly candid, that story, with all of the other stories, popping up in the world, if Trump is infectious, if he's not infectious, if he should have a group, a meeting, if he should get back to campaigning. This story spoke to me because it's part of the underbelly of what we as Americans are really much more concerned with. The reality of who is actually policing, being a steward, to protect and serve. We need to be aware of these things. We need to hold these people accountable. We need to say, no, we want details. We want to know exactly what happened and who knew it and when they knew it. Because I don't know if you guys know this, but it was actually a case in Southern California, Orange County, I believe. Again, those of you who watch me see I don't have notes. I'm speaking off the top of my head. I am actually looking down at some stories that I want to share with you soon. But the Catholic Church did not have to report molestation to the authorities outside that separation of church and state. They did not have to report things that came into the confessional, and especially among priests, until recently. Within the last 20 years, a law was passed that said, no, you don't get to police your own. See how I said that? You don't get to mete out punishment for a crime that's a crime across the board for other people. You don't get that, privilege like a lawyer privilege or a doctor confidentiality. No, not when it comes to a felony and an act against a young person. No, sorry. And I think it should be the same with law enforcement. They shouldn't be allowed to keep secrets or police their own or I don't even think there should be internal affairs. I think it should just be affairs, like this is what happened. I think it should be external affairs, to be perfectly candid. So now I have to tell you a happy story because we have to have balance. Okay. So getting back to the changes that we're going to have at the Monique Marvez here, we call this Talk of Our Times. Well, the podcast is called Monique Marvez, the Monique Marvez Show, and then they always have a title like Crossing the Rubicon or Timing is Everything. So what I want to do, and I want your feedback, is number one, the 330s are going to stay the 330s. I'm almost at 200. I want to see how long it goes, and it's growing. If we lose somebody, we gain somebody. It's always a pretty good group of people that show up at 3:30, and that's exciting to me. And I'm thinking, if anything, I would have a second device, and the 3:30 would go live on Facebook and on YouTube and live on YouTube, so that if anybody that isn't on Facebook wants to be part of the 3:30 gang, they can be part of the 3:30 gang. Because right now it's limited to just the people that are fans on my Monique Marvez official fan page. And I'm thinking that if we also did it on YouTube, we might be able to grow our community a little more, and that could be kind of fun. So that's the 3:30. Then I believe that over time, and I've talked to producer Stanton, that the Talk of Our Times is going to meld into the podcast. It's just going to be the Monique Marvez Show, and I will continue to do news stories because I never did regular news, even when I was on KFI, which is why I think people liked my show, because it was a little bit different, because I don't think anybody is reporting the porcupine story or making a big deal out of it or drawing what I believe to be the natural conclusions. If A equals C and B equals C, then A equals C. Like if people are not governing themselves accordingly, the fact that this guy's attorney would say this is not the chance to take a cheap shot at a policeman. Cheap shot? He beat a mammal to death. There's no such thing as a cheap shot. I would like it to be a felony. I would like him to be in a heck of a lot more trouble than he is. I don't think losing his job is enough. But he is going to be charged. But, it's, again, misdemeanor. Okay, so now we can get back to my other story. This story is, again, a little bit sad, but kind of beautiful. And that is, and when I say beautiful, I meaning he did a lot in his time. He died at 70, and here's who died. Max Osceola. Osceola, like Osceola Indians. And the reason why this touched me is because it's the Seminole Indian Reservation. He was reelected to 13 consecutive 2-year terms from 1985 to 2010. See, 2-year terms. In Indian country, Native American country, which is the correct way to say it, this guy kept getting elected over and over, Max Osceola Jr. And why was that? Because in 1971, 2 Londoners started Hard Rock International. Like, we all know Hard Rock. We all know what, what the Hard Rock is, right? Hard Rock Cafe started in London. Second one was here in LA in the Beverly Center. And what he did, and I've performed at the Hard Rock. A lot of people only know it because Anna Nicole Smith died there. But when I was a little girl, and this made me get so sentimental. When I was a little girl, we have the Seminole Indians in Miami. And they were, they're the tribe. They've been there forever. They live on the edge of the Everglades. And it was a big thing when I was a kid to go on a field trip to the reservation, and we saw them wrestle alligators and hold their mouths open, and we would buy beaded things, and we would eat their bread and their food. It was very exciting. It's when they started the Head Start program so that the Native Americans could be educated in a more standardized fashion, and we would get to sit in on a Head Start class. And it was a very big deal when I was a kid. And my father would even take us sometimes on our weekends. My parents were divorced, and, we would ride on the airboats out in the Everglades. And it was a very big deal. The Seminole Indian tribe is a very big part of the fabric of South Florida. And this guy was brilliant in that when they actually got a casino, and there's casinos, Indian casinos in South Florida, just like there are in Southern California and Oklahoma. What he did was he said, this is what we do right. We have a casino, and we have, this, that, and the other, but this is what they do right. They have sort of morphed this idea of dining, because the Hard Rocks didn't start out as casinos. They didn't start out as hotels, but they had a Hard Rock Hotel in Las Vegas, which was phenomenally successful in the 90s. And he said, we're going to do what we do, which is have these casinos and, build a brand. And we're going to bring the Hard Rock in to run it and to partner with us. And actually what ended up happening was that the casino did, and I don't even have to look at this because when I was there, I asked and they told me, the casino did so well that with the Native American money, they actually bought the brand of the Hard Rock. And the last time I was in South Florida in January, they had built this enormous tower next to the original hotel and entertainment center, which is enormous, shaped into a giant guitar. But imagine a hotel, a large hotel, like probably 15 stories. I don't know. I haven't looked it up. It's shaped like a guitar with a beam of light shooting, into the sky that you can see from everywhere. And I believe that, that beam of light is what he was able to do for his community and how much he was able to uplift the Native Americans of Miami, South Florida, the Everglades, with all of his righteous and intelligent actions that he took. So rest in peace. And also with the mention of the guitar, let me say, rest in peace, Eddie Van Halen. So yeah, that kind of completely hijacked my 330 this week, one of my 330s. The death at 65 years old of Eddie Van Halen also made me extremely sentimental. So we're now going to go into another story, which that one was kind of positive. This is completely positive. This is a great story. And some of you know this story because I mentioned it on a 330, but it's worth going into deeper detail. Now, there's a wonderful singer named Sia, and she's 44. She's not a kid. And none of us knew what she looked like because she was very famous for covering her face. She has an amazing voice. She sang the vocals on a very cool sort of, dance track, I guess you'd call it, DJ dance track called Titanium. She has, among many other things. So here's what she did. I am obsessed with reality television. I'm not going to tell you what she did. I'm going to tell you, but I don't want to just give you the headline. I am obsessed with reality television and documentaries, and I watched a documentary and saw my son. The Together singer explained that she felt an instant connection to the teenage boy after realizing he didn't have his own family. I was like, what? Like he doesn't have anybody? Oh my God, I'm going to find him and I'm going to be his mummy. And so that's what I did, she said. And the star, this is what she did. She tracked the boy down and adopted him and his friend. She first confirmed that she welcomed two sons into her family last year on SiriusXM Morning Mashup. They were both 18. They're both 19 now. And she revealed they were aging out of the foster care system. So, yes, she's their mummy, their mother, and she's raising them. But here's what she actually did, which is so precious. She adopted two boys that were on the edge of life, that had been in the foster system for most of their lives, were alone, and said, okay, not only are you going to not be aged out of a system without any resource or recourse, I'm going to bring you into my home. I'm an international pop star. I'm in abundance. I have wealth. I don't know how wealthy she is, but she clearly has abundance. And she said, I was watching this documentary. I saw this boy. I had an affinity for him. I researched. I found him. I brought him home. I gave him a home. Oh, and by the way, he had a friend in the system that was just like him. And I thought, hey, why separate them? I'll bring them both home. How great is that? See, to be perfectly candid with you guys, one of the reasons that I want to grow this, the Monique Marvez show, the podcast, and the 330, and to get more ads and to make things happen in my life on a larger scale than just get on a boat, get off a boat, do this, do that, is because I look forward to the day when I can act as a fairy godmother. I mean, I've rescued a bunch of dogs. I've mentored people. I mean, I do the best I can. But wow, to be able to be of service on that kind of level is like a dream come true. Like I live for the day that I could do something like that. What a wonderful, wonderful story. So that being said, I am having the 330 gang has held me accountable because I said that I'm not only going to write my book. Hey, it's so good to see you guys. Not only am I going to write the book, but I'm actually going to release it week by week. Like we're going to have the Monique Marvez show and a segment of the Monique Marvez show every week. Just about, 6, 8, 10 minutes of the show is going to be a story from the book, a piece. And then if you go to my website, MoniqueMarvez.com, which is now live, all things Monique, I say, then you can download a chapter. It'll be very inexpensive. You'll get all the details. It'll be like a book. Like you went to Barnes & Noble and you bought a chapter of a book. And I'll make it super cheap just because at some point then you'll have all of them. You can put them in a binder or you can just buy the paperback at that point because you got tired of stacking papers in your house. And you know that it's going to go to a good cause, which is me doing good things in the world. So now I will officially share with you, as we're winding down, a wonderful story from my book. And it is, it's a chapter entitled, We Are the Latinos. So here's the story. The story goes, it begins with me saying that I did not know that I was Hispanic until I was 6 years old. And this is absolutely true. I had no idea because I grew up in a very nice neighborhood in Miami, in Coconut Grove, where people spoke with very round vowels. It was a nice neighborhood and people were, white. And when I say white, I don't mean Caucasian. I mean their lifestyles, the way they spoke to one another, their hedges, their lawns, everything was very patrician, a lot of plaid. I was surprised that our neighbors, the Shillingtons, they had a Dachshund. We called it a wiener dog. And I remember talking to them about their dog, and they told me how they bought it from a breeder. And I'd never even heard of that. Like the whole idea that people bought dogs that were made on purpose was like amazing to me. As Latino people, we just get a stray so it'll eat whatever food we don't eat because we hate to throw food away. So the fact that like they bought the dog from someone that made it on purpose. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not entirely certain that most of my family was made on purpose. But I will tell you this, that my grandmother, my father's mother, is to blame for me not knowing I was Latina because she did everything on purpose. My grandmother was a pretty amazing person and she wanted more. So here's the story within the story. I like to tell people, and now I can say it with pride and with love, because when I was younger, people always compared me to my grandmother, and I was like, she's a beast. I mean, she literally looked like Ernest Borgnine in drag. I mean, she's this huge woman. On her death certificate, it had her listed at 5'8", 212 pounds, and she had already shrunk and lost weight. Like, she had these enormous boobs that her bra was like a structural masterpiece, like an engineer probably decided how the stitching was going to go. I mean, long before Madonna had the cones, my grandmother had these, like they called them Dagmar, the back of the Cadillac fins, because there was a famous actress named Dagmar that had the pointy bras. But my grandmother's were so big that my two brothers would actually put my grandmother's bra on their heads at the same time and make jokes about how they could wear my grandmother's bra on their head. So when people would say, like, oh, you're just like abuela meaning grandmother in Spanish, I would be like, that is not a compliment, at that time. So my grandmother was, let me tell you about her, and then you'll know why I didn't know I was Hispanic. My grandmother was the Great Gatsby of Puerto Rico in a way. And that happened because she was very, very much in love with a young man when she was in high school. And my grandmother graduated high school. I mean, she was born in 1906 when women did not graduate high school, but it was very important to her to graduate high school. And in her senior year, she was very, very much in love with this young man. And of course, the Depression was going full tilt. And he came to her and he told her with all the love. It's just like a Gabriel Garcia. I mean, it's like, it's a novel. It's epic. It's F. Scott Fitzgerald meets Gabriel Garcia, Love in the Time of Cholera. And he told her, I love you. I love you, but I can't marry you. I can't have anything to do with you. We're done. Because there's this young woman from a good family of means with a family business who likes me. And if I marry her, I save my family. I go to work for her father, all is good in the world. So gotta go. And that broke her heart. It didn't just break her heart. It did something to her. I mean, years later, when she finally told me the story, years later, I could still see in her that energy of a woman that it happened 5 minutes ago. But in between the time that she suffered that heartbreak and the time she told me the story, what a life. My grandmother moved to New York City and sewed ties for almost no money, pennies on the dollar. She saved up and she bought one of those permanent machines that came out of the ceiling where you could curl people's hair, like back in the day before it was a chemical perm. It was actually a helmet. And she bought one and she took it down to San Juan. And here's the funny thing is that, I didn't understand the whole concept of Spanish being the mother tongue from Spain. And I always thought that, again, growing up in Coconut Grove, Florida, that Spanish was just a language that my family spoke so we could talk about the neighbors pretty much right in front of them because they didn't speak Spanish. So, families have, I say that every family is a little bit like it's a country, and you teach your children foreign policy. So I'm going to be very candid. My grandmother wasn't racist in an aggressive outward way. She was more old school prejudice. She was, wary of Black people. And we didn't call them African Americans because they were in Puerto Rico. But she would say like something along the lines of, los negros, blah, blah, blah. And I would be like, Grandma, you understand that Black people do understand negros. They get that, because she stayed that way her whole life. But here's the interesting part is that she was pragmatic. Her foreign policy was, even though I'm a little bit prejudiced, maybe a little bit leery of you, at the end of the day, money, pride, wanting to elevate my family is stronger than that feeling. So she bought this machine, she took it to San Juan, and she uncurled every afro in San Juan. And she was making money hand over fist. She had the first permanent machine. She did so well, she bought another one. And she took it and she started doing other people's hair. and just taught, like everybody in her neighborhood had perfect waves, finger waves. She taught my grandfather how to do it. And then when there wasn't a curl left in town, she moved to Miami and she bought the house in Coconut Grove, cash, in her bathing suit, I might add. So our family goes to see the movie West Side Story. And, I was a kid. I'd started spying on the adults, and I would hear the neighbors talking about us. And we would, the other neighbors, they didn't dig a hole in the backyard and roast a whole pig on a spit. I mean, I didn't think anything of it, but they would just pop up like little meerkats looking at us, and I'd hear them. So our family actually went to see West Side Story because before DVDs, VCRs, streaming, movies were re-released in the theater periodically, the popular ones. So we went to see West Side Story. And at the end of the movie, Chino shoots the jet. Beautiful jet with big blue eyes and a ski jump nose. And I look at my father standing on the sidewalk in Miami, and I said, Daddy, and I was just parroting what I'd heard, Daddy, those Latinos are going to ruin everything. And my dad said, Monique, I drive a Trans Am. We have a saint in the front yard. Look at your grandmother's boobies. We are the Latinos. And I realized never hate or fear anything because you could be it. That's how I found out I was Latino. Because in spite of my grandmother putting me in a wonderful neighborhood, you are what you are. So that's the story. I hope you liked it. I hope it made you smile. I hope it made you think of your own childhood and things that you maybe didn't understand about your culture or where people came from. It brought back a lot of good memories when I was putting that together for you guys. So that's what we're going to have. We're going to have eventually the Monique Marvez show, which is going to be a potpourri with a little section called the Lit Cast, which is literature, lit from within, stuff that's coming from me. I'm not going to be reading other people's books. I'm going to be reading what you guys are holding me accountable to write for you. And we're going to keep growing this thing that we started during COVID times. And we're going to make it better and deeper. And I'll have more stories for you, not just personal, but in the news. I hope I make you think. I tell people that when they see me in a comedy club, they'll come over to me and they'll say, like, you're funny, but it's more than that. Like, you made me think about things. And I'm like, I'm glad I made you think. Thinking is good. But I want to make you laugh because laughter is the salve that keeps reality from scarring. If I said something tonight that made you just chuckle or think of something in your own life that was, generated a memory, something warm, something funny in your own life, with your own family, with its own misgivings and its own wonderfulness, then that's really what I want to do. And I'm grateful that I got to do it this way at this time. That's why I'm saying we get to vote. We get to decide. We get to vote, meaning not just the politicians and who wins and whether or not we get to stay in our house or leave our house. We get to vote for us. We get to vote for the best part of us to come out and do something and happen. And nothing can stop that. Nothing can stop the best part of you from coming out, being shared in some way in the world we live in now, whatever it is. And we just have a couple seconds left. But we don't have to stop at exactly 60 minutes. It's not like I'm on a TV show or a radio show where I'm at KFI and Brian Suits is waiting. So, Producer Stanton, can we show them the TV commercial?
Oh, yeah. I was dying over your grandma stories. That was awesome.
You like that story?
I did. All of them. Every little bit of it. Okay, I'm going to share my screen so we can take a look at that.
Yay! My TV commercial came. Well, it's not mine, but I'm in it.
All right. And I'm cranked up. Go full screen. Here we go. This is my first time seeing it. Now, I haven't looked at this yet. So.
Yay!
Things make life a pleasure. Thank you. And hands-free Kizik's are the easiest to choose. Kizik's make life easier.
spite of being a 30-year-old man who still lives with his mom.
Yeah.
Nanny, with Kizik hands-free shoes, you only use your feet to put them on, and they stay on. Thanks for working out for me. I get so tired when I do it myself.
We're in and out of our shoes all day long. Maybe you have to take out the trash or bring in the groceries.
Ooh.
And your kid wants to play by the pool.
Cannonball!
And your kid falls asleep by the pool.
Kiziks make life so much easier, so you can spend more time enjoying life's happy little moments. You look so grown up.
Because he is a grown-up.
No matter what stage of life you're in, you deserve a comfortable quality shoe with hands-free technology. Click on the link and order your Kiziks today. Kizik's Springback Heel gives you the secure feeling of lace-up shoes with the convenience of slip-ons, so you can see they're worth every penny.
What's a penny? I didn't realize it before, but putting on shoes used to be a huge hassle. First, you have to bend over, stand on one foot, untangle laces. It was almost never worth going outside at all. Now, I love the outdoors. I'm going to walk the dog, Mommy. Walk! I'll be back in 20. Kiziks have a 4.9 star rating. Listen to the people.
My husband raves about these shoes. They're the most comfortable shoes he's ever worn.
Feet have a new best friend.
I don't want to use regular shoes anymore. I ended up buying 4 pairs.
A great shoe is hard to find. We tried everything from the store.
Nope. No. Maybe not.
And if you slip on other shoes, that actually means jam your finger in or crush the heel. And I'll try all that while pregnant. I'm not pregnant. I mean, I think that ship has sailed. I wouldn't want to make that mistake twice.
Mommy, look!
And if for some reason you're not happy with your Kiziks, they're also the easiest to exchange or return. Simply peel and reseal the same box and send it back for free.
Please tell them I would like the blue ones instead.
I don't just personally take these to the company.
Will
That's not
this
how
be enough?
Yes.
After using Kiziks, going back to tying shoes is like going from automatic windows to manual. Or from streaming movies to rentals. Hands-free shoes may not seem like a big deal, but once you try them, you'll wish you found them sooner.
You like it?
I do.
Yeah. This is how shoes should have been all along. Get your Kiziks today and make putting on shoes a pleasure. Kiziks, don't let your shoes slow you down.
Yeah.
Ooh, this hurts my tum-tum. Please tell the cow next time less lactose.
Honey, that's not how
I
it
take
works.
full responsibility.
Yes.
There you go. Pretty funny, right?
That's awesome, Monique. Yeah, give it up for Monique. Woo! All right, I'm going to drop off the stream.
All right. So now that you saw the commercial and you heard the first story, I'm going to say goodnight. And you know how I do that. Love hard, forgive harder, and get as happy as you can as fast as you can.